Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. And here I am again, and I think I have a problem. Let me see. Something wrong with my cameras. Yes, got it to work. So, how is everybody today? Today is Tuesday, one of my favorite days of the week. But it's always my favorite day because you were all here. One of my favorite days of the week. Thank you for being here. I'm glad all the usual suspects are there. Hey, Mike. Hey, Saul Bull. Hey, T&D, Bottle of Red. Thank you all for being here. It just warms my heart every day to put all this together for you guys and hope you get something out of it. Today will be a big one. I've done a detailed analysis over all of the different cohorts going back to 2021, January to today, and to find exactly who out there in the Bitcoin world is buying and selling, who's accumulating, who's dumping. And the answers may surprise you because they took me a little bit aback. And a lot of digging goes on behind the scenes to pull these together, so I hope you enjoy it. But today, there's the predominance of bad and ugly news. So I'm going to start with the ugly first and leave the good news for the end. So hold tight and let's jump in. Make sure everything is working. Yes, it is. And this video is called Who Bought and Who Sold, and it's edutainment, never financial advice. You guys know the drill. So here we are. Ugly news first. And there is a lot. Normally there's not this much ugly news, but here we go. First of all, we'll start with the unlocks. You guys like this new segment to say exactly what's going to dump on you over the next 7 to 15 days. And some interesting stuff. There's some names that I never even heard of, like GALXE. Sounds like Galaxy. No idea what that is, so I'm not even going to touch it. And it's probably a scam coin. But then you've got Stepin and Sweatcoin, the two play to earn plays. And they're going to be dumping their sweat all over you over the next couple of days, I'm afraid. So be careful. And the big surprise there on the list, too, is Atom Cosmos. They have a large dump coming, $3.7 million a day, starting in 3 days. So watch out if you hold that. 1 inch is there, as usual. DYDX as well. And Aptos and DYDX will continue to rain down tokens on you guys. So be careful. We're not on anybody's side. We just look at data and point out numbers. And when these things dump, the price goes down and retail investors get hurt. So watch out. Let's talk about the Fed as well, just because this is all about money. When we follow the money, it tells us where things are going to go. So this is the Fed assets up $400 billion in 2 weeks, which is stunning. And what's also happening is they're jacking rates into this too. How will all this end? Well, I don't know. Some people say that this technically is not QE, but when a balance sheet gets bigger, yes, it is. In my opinion, it's dollars. But there's dollars going weird places. We need to follow the money. Okay, let's look at the debt cycle and where we are today. This is on the left. The blue line is the effective Fed funds rate, and we're so focused on that, and it's so boring to death, but we have to talk about it because it's the lid that keeps the froth off the market. And this is the effective Fed funds rate going back to 2007. The important thing is the US debt has tripled since rates were this high in the past. Back then, the debt was about 8 trillion. Now it's over 32. So it's not even triple. It's more than triple. It's 3.5 times. And the annual deficit back then was $400 billion a year. Sounds like nothing. Now it's over 2 trillion. So riddle me that. How are they going to get out of that? Let's look at the balance. This would be the cash your family, your household have on hand. And this is where it is going for the US Treasury. Their cash balance is tanking. The latest government report is out in the US Treasury. Cash balance just reached another recent low. And they only have $187 billion left in the kitty. Okay? Keep in mind, the deficit in February was nearly $270 billion. They only have 187 left. In my math, that's 3 weeks, and then the money's gone. Gone. So what happens next? Yeah, they print more magic money, and that's how it works, and that's why we talk about this stuff. Let's talk about other drainage that's happening. Small banks just had their largest single week of deposit outflows since 2007. A massive, massive headwind for what I've been talking about for months now is credit, liquidity, that crunch. You're going out there to borrow money for your business or for your family. It's going to be hard to come by because the banks have been drained. Nobody trusts them, small, regional, commercial, etc. And that is a big problem. Also, commercial real estate. 70% of the funding for commercial real estate comes from these small banks. They can't give money out anymore because they don't have any. It is insane. Absolutely insane. But let's talk about the Fed for a second. We saw that the Fed is running out of cash, but let's look at this. I call this the Fed torching themselves. And it's not just the commercial banks that are upside down and the yield curve is inverted and all that other good stuff. But look at this. The Fed itself is sitting on a $1.080354 trillion. And those little 354 numbers matter a lot because that's 354 million bucks after 1.08 trillion. But this is how much the Fed is carrying in unrealized losses, driven by the same duration mismatch as the banks. They are suffering too. Where is this $1.08 trillion come from? We already discussed how much they're burning right now and how they'll be out of money in 3 weeks at this current deficit rate. So it's funny. It's kind of crazy. And one of the biggest, scariest things, big shoe to drop on top of the other shoes that I've mentioned a few times in the last week or so. This is the CRE crisis becoming critical. As you know, I like my alliteration. The CRE is for commercial real estate. Vacant office space in the US hit its highest level ever recorded on history of 18.7%. Think of that as being 1/5 or 20% of all US office space is empty. Empty. Nobody is paying rent on it. And $50 billion of variable office debt will come due this year. It's going to be financed at a rate that's probably 2.5 times what it was in the past, and nobody's paying rent. This is a crisis that's brewing that's going to be huge. And if anybody's in the market for cheap commercial real estate in circa, 3 to 6 months, it'll be there, guaranteed. And this is really going to hit GDP growth in the economy. In other ugly news, Lucid is cutting 18% of their staff. That translates to about 1,350 employees. And they had a very rough end of 2022, and production in 2023 is also horrible. But one of the reasons, not even is the production bad, but nobody's buying their cars at all. Huge drop in orders and cancellations of orders in the fourth quarter, and expect that to get worse. It is ugly out there, and these cars aren't cheap. They're like 6 digits plus. So that's Lucid. And switching gears to the bad news. Again, we've gotten out of the good, ugly. Now we go to the bad, and then get to the good. So hold on for the good. This is the crypto market over the last week, divided by Bitcoin, i.e. denominated in Bitcoin. We're not thinking of dollars anymore. And you can see it was a rough week. If Bitcoin was flat, ETH fell 13% compared to it. BNB, 20%. We'll talk more about those guys later. One green spot, though, which is crazy, is Binance is up 18%. Unbelievable. Everything else pretty much red across the board. When we look at it denominated in dollars, you can see ETH actually is up a fraction in US dollars, which is kind of bizarre. Bitcoin fell only 1.6%. And it depends as well on the time that this is measured, but things can move very drastically in the markets and how this is calculated divided by Bitcoin over the last week and in dollars over the last week. So it's kind of stunning to see. Now let's look at the stock market as well. This is unusual. You can see here a very, very mixed bag. Some green, some red. Baba up 17% on word that they would break the company into 6 different parts. I need to dig into that and find out exactly if any of the parts are good, like if they have an AI division, which I'm sure they do have. It could be quite valuable. JD is up, Amazon down, Google down, Tesla down. Big Pharma up for the most part. Microsoft flat, Apple down. So it's been kind of a mixed bag. Nvidia just about flat, but it's kind of running out of steam at its current level right now. Let's go a little bit further. A lot of anxiety regarding MicroStrategy, and this is a brilliant piece that talks about exactly how it behaves every time they announce that they buy Bitcoin. People aren't really sure what that means. How do they get the money? Are they incurring more debt, etc.? So let's spend a couple of minutes on this one because a lot of you are out there, hold it as a proxy in your retirement accounts because you don't have access to buying Bitcoin straight. Now, MicroStrategy did enter into an agreement with Cowen back in September, and their plan was to issue more stock. We knew, I've been talking about, have they sold? Have they sold? I wasn't able to tell if they sold stock, but we did get notified that they issued some stock back in late 2022. And I think they sold about $50 million worth of Class A shares, and they bought about 2,500 Bitcoin. Then they also issued an additional 339 million worth of shares in Q1. And then they were able to buy back some of their debt for Silvergate. And I can't remember, but it's something like a 20 to 25% discount. So they were able to buy back their debt at a fraction of what they got it for, which is a very clever deal. I always talk about Saylor and the CFO over there. They play financial jiu-jitsu games. So this is not like an ETF. It's like a leveraged fund, buying and borrowing and trading, etc. But they don't sell Bitcoin. But they did sell a little bit to buy it back for a wash sale reason. Anyhow, here we are. The key thing about this chart, though, is you can see every time they announce the black bars, when this is the Bitcoin performance on announcement day, Bitcoin falls. Interesting. Also, so did MicroStrategy. And then the blue bars are the 1 week performance after the announcement. And on average, it's kind of flat. It's down by minus 0.2%. But the average Bitcoin performance on the day of a MicroStrategy announcement is minus 2.2%. And they attribute that to the fact that, okay, the big buyer out there in the market, he's done. Kind of like buy the rumor, sell the news type of thing. And that's how this plays. So some people buy the dip. MicroStrategy actually was outperforming Bitcoin today, which is a reflection of this as well. So that's the MicroStrategy news. Now, Binance, everybody's talking about it, so I don't need to whip that story. But the leading cryptocurrency exchange by trading volume and leading, it really is a leading exchange. They were accused by the US regulator of having violated trading derivatives rules, according to a lawsuit filed by CFTC in a Chicago federal court. And it's just another piece of what I call choke point. But Binance falling 5% is a reflection of how much of kind of a nothing burger this is. It was a stunning suit, a lot of detail in it. In fact, ran over on Crypto Banter, covered it in great detail. If you want to check out his video from this morning, it covers everything you need to know. And they did have a lot of stuff, including spying on CZ's phones and getting text messages and all that type of stuff, which is interesting. But again, the most important thing that came out of that, though, they did say things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin, and 2 stable coins were actually commodities, which is good for ETH. We'll talk more about that too in a minute. Let's talk about more Binance headwinds. You can see here, this is the Binance spot 7-day average in blue. You can see it fell off a cliff. Black is the real Bitcoin daily volume, excluding Binance. And you can see it's gotten a little bit bigger compared to the past. And Bitcoin dominance for all spot Bitcoin trading is falling fast, down now around 86%, compared to it was up about 96% only a few days ago. So again, they are facing more headwinds. People are getting nervous with the exchange, but some people outside the country, they don't care. It'll be TikTok. They'll chug along and survive this. And CZ also made a very detailed memo on his counter to the CFTC lawsuit. But I think there's just more Operation Choke Point hitting all things crypto. Also, we covered this last week, but the Binance share of volume by fee type, you can see the free, no fees Bitcoin trading has gone away, and therefore Binance is making a lot of money too. And you could argue, I'm thinking, talk about the timing. Now they can make a ton of money from Bitcoin trading. That also explains the fall off in spot trading volume, but they can make a lot of money that they can pay attorneys to fight the lawsuit for, perhaps. Who knows? We'll see. And other news as well. All eyes on CZ's wallet. This isn't exactly bad or ugly news, but what it is a movement. Now, I have been tracking this, and exactly 2 weeks ago, I tracked it first. They had 970 million in there in BUSD. Last week, it fell to about 776 million. And now they have 421 million. I don't know where this money has gone. Probably into altcoins, I reckon. But I'll try to get to the bottom of that and find out for you guys. Now, the good news part of the show. Here we dig into some Bitcoin news. So first of all, we're going to talk about Bitcoin dominance. Per our models, it seems like the Bitcoin dominance top has been confirmed. A lot of people are hoping Bitcoin dominance will nuke to 70%. I don't see that happening. But if you look at things like mean reversion and everything else in a confidence model, it looks like it is turning around and it's topped out. In fact, that could be reflected in some of the altcoins moving today. In fact, the altcoins with the worst tokenomics on earth are all rallying today, which is bizarre. But anyway, that's the nature of the beast. Let's look at some on-chain stuff here from Glassnode. This is a chart that looks at profit and loss by return bands for short-term holders. And the short-term holder profit is the highest since November 2021. And this cohort, and we'll be talking more about these cohorts in a minute too, is taking significant profit. And a reason why the price action has kind of been sideways around that 27.2 to 28.5 for the last couple of weeks. And the positive is the long-term holders have either capitulated from what happened back in November 2022 and taken all their profits in that region. This is the long-term holder, and it shows that they did capitulate in late 2022. And this is what prompted me to dig into cohorts. So we have short-term holders, long-term holders. Long-term holders typically have very big bags. Short-term holders are kind of like jump in, jump out, play with some old coins and everything else. So let's dig in and find out exactly who has been accumulating and who hasn't over different points in time. So I started accumulating all this data and updated. So I had detailed data going back to January 2021 and January 2023 when I did this last. And that is basically a 24-month period. But then I did it again for today, March 28th, which is 90 days after I did it last time in January 2023. So blue is January 2021. And the most important thing to take away from this is those holding between 1,000 and 10,000 Bitcoin have lost a lot of Bitcoin. Okay, and who's been sucking all that up? And that is the people with 0 to 1 Bitcoin and the people with 100,000 plus Bitcoin. And that's kind of the breakdown. In more detail, let's look at the actual moves of the evolution over the last 90 days across these different cohorts. And this is interesting. And before people start shouting at me, well, that doesn't add up to an exact number, you got to remember 900 new Bitcoin are mined every single day. That's why these numbers technically don't add up. But here you can see those with 0 to 1 Bitcoin have added an extra 50,000 Bitcoin. 1 to 10 added 20,000 Bitcoin. And this is just since January 1st, by the way. 10 to 100 Bitcoin, 10,000 Bitcoin. Then you have 100 to 1,000 Bitcoin has been completely flat. They haven't bought or sold. Then you got your 1K to 10,000. They have offloaded 20,000 Bitcoin, which isn't a hill of beans considering how many Bitcoin are out there. And then your 10K to 100K have grown by 19,000, and your 100K plus have grown by 25,000. So the big takeaway from this is, so far, year to date, you've got like a barbell effect. Nothing's really happening in the middle. The small guys are accumulating and the big guys are accumulating, which is interesting to watch. And of course, it fluctuates every single day, but this is what we track. Let's look at how they grew and shrank. So if you look at January 2021 and how the whole spread is, you can see the biggest bag holders with nearly 30% of all Bitcoin were those with 1,000 to 10,000 Bitcoin. 30%, that's that big orange cube. Now they only have 23.6% as of today. If you look at the 100 to 1,000, they've grown slightly from 19.4 to 20.3%. Then your 10 to 100 Bitcoin has shrunk. And that used to be the biggest bag holder, the second biggest bag holder. And now they've gone from 24.1% to 23% of all Bitcoin. And then the red is the 1 to 10. I know there's a lot of reds out there in this audience, a lot of whole coiners. That's you guys. It's grown from 9.5% to 10.8% of all holders. And then 0 to 1 went from 3.9% to 6.8%, which is a big, big climb. And then your 100K plus is also kind of stunning. Went from 0.8% to 3.6%. They're the kind of mega whales that we just spoke of. Then your 10K to 100K, 12.5% to 12%. It's kind of slightly down on where they were in the past. So I love tracking that. Another visual is the percentage changes. The biggest ones that grew the biggest. This is percentage, not in actual coins, but the growth of the bag that they have as a percentage of overall Bitcoin. 100K plus, the biggest grower, and 0 to 1 Bitcoin, second biggest. The rest, you can see, very stable over the last 25 months, especially 10K to 100K and 10 to 100, literally flat. And in tracking the actual Bitcoin movements, you can see here the 1K to 10K lost 1 million Bitcoin. And they was gobbled up by the 0 to 1 the 1 to 10, and the 100K plus, and of course the 100 to 1K plus Bitcoin. Now, I love looking at this information. People might say, why does he bother? But it's very, very important to know who is actually stacking and accumulating. And the more everybody has, the better the world will be, I believe. Because you don't want all the concentration with the whales, but stunning to see how the 100K plus whales have been growing, and we know who they are. So let's look at Grayscale Bitcoin Trust discount. It's been holding steady. Last week was around 36%. Today it's 37.84%. So not too bad. Still trying to hear more from the resolution of the SEC hearing, where Grayscale is actually suing them to be able to convert to an ETF. And things are not too bad right now. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Let's look at decoupling news. The relationship between Nasdaq tech stocks, which are the most highly correlated, at least it used to be, asset, to Bitcoin. And over the last 90 days, Bitcoin is up 60.2%. Nasdaq is up 13% over the last 90 days. So it's been an interesting year, but still, so far this year, Bitcoin is by far the best performing asset, and a long time coming too. Let's look at money flow. Again, follow the money. Digital asset investment products. This is from CoinShares. So inflows totaling 160 million. This is the largest since July 2022. And by the way, 2 weeks ago, we had the largest dip since 2022. So it's kind of like the money flows in, the money flows out. It's kind of crazy. But this is a big turnaround over the last couple of weeks we had 6 weeks of drainage, 2 big ones, and a big return back. So nice to see it snap back. Let's look at the asset flows. Where is the money going? Well, the inflows actually came from US, Germany, and Canada. So sometimes Germany and the US go counter to each other. This time they're moving together. I think about 69 million came in from USA, 60 million from Germany, and 26 million from Canada. That's a big chunk, considering the population of Canada is a tenth the size, I think, of the US, approximately. Don't quote me on that. But they pumped in nearly half the amount of money the Americans have into Bitcoin. Could this be concern with governments? I'm not sure. I'd love to see that, actually, how people... I know historically, if you get really crazy regimes, people buy a lot of Bitcoin, but some regimes are getting crazier and crazier. But I'm not going to talk about politics here. I'm just going to talk about numbers. Here, Bitcoin was the primary beneficiary, pulled in 128 million, as I mentioned. Ethereum, 5.2 million of outflows. When we talk about this, this could be jitters related to the Shanghai upgrade, which is expected on the 12th of April. A lot of stuff happening on the 12th of April. In fact, 14th of April is the date that I think the Bitcoin halving will be. So imagine if the Bitcoin halving actually happens at the same time as the Shanghai upgrade, but exactly a year later. That would be interesting. So we'll remember that. And the broad set of altcoins as well saw inflows. Most notable were Solana, big bag, 4.8 million. XRP, 1.2 million. That's one of those ones that's doing really well over the last week. Polygon, 1.9 million. And I can't remember what the other name was that pulled in 600,000, or a combination of small altcoins. But that's the money flow, so it's nice to see that rebounding. Let's talk about Bitcoin season. This has dipped back. You can see here, we've gone back to 24, and that means it is Bitcoin season. But that's not what my dominance chart says. My dominance chart says we're about to bounce up again. So it's weird the way these things sometimes lag. And this is driven by this, which is the top 50 performance over the last 90 days. Everything over the last 90 days, everything is up but Leo. And I don't know anything about Leo. So, and it's down there with Doge and Monero, Quant, ApeCoin, Uniswap. A lot of the old stuff and meme stuff still down and to the right. And then Bitcoin right there, kind of in the top 25 percentile. And then your new alts, all doing quite well, as well as some other names like Decentraland, Neo, Solana, Phantom, Lido, RPL, The Graph, Aptos, and Synthetics. Remember, the Aptos dump is coming. Aptos pumped a bit today as well, but that will be short-lived with the selling pressure, I do imagine. I think it's by riding the coattails of the strength of Arbitrum. Now, let's look at some other market correlations. This is the chart that looks at the 3 major stock market indices. Since inflation began to pick up back on the 10th of February 2021. I remember that day. It's when the first big alert came. It was like, uh-oh, Houston, we have some inflation. But the shift overall has been the blue chips that make up the Dow have held up the best. So if there comes a time when we leave a deflationary period and we start putting inflation on, think about some blue chip investments. Investing in the Dow even, and I tend to avoid that because it's very slow growth type companies. But again, it's done well in the inflationary times. Let's look at the fear and greed index. We are still greedy, and this is still hanging up there near that 60% mark, which takes us back to early 2022. And it is dipping a little bit, but so far we're still in the greed category, which is good, which is an overall reflection of confidence in the market. And let's talk about Shapella. Now, I don't know where this Shapella name came from. I think it might be the new name for Shanghai. But they confirmed the Shapella upgrade will occur on the April 12th. This might be why Ethereum investors are a little bit nervous. You've got other altcoins and Ethereum killers actually outperforming Ethereum right now. And it might be because of this. Now, on April 12th, they will allow withdrawals to happen on the chain. On staking, also there'll be EIP, a couple of EIPs. I don't remember the numbers, but it's like 5 or 6 of them. And also, there was talk of dank sharding, I think, being several years away. And others have built out versions of that, like Polygon and Matter Labs. They have built out versions of zero-knowledge rollups to help with the Ethereum scaling problem. So the amount of development on the layer 2 side is insane, and they're doing it far faster than Ethereum can itself. So watch the ZK space. Let me know if you want me to do a deep dive into that, because it is growing very, very fast. Let's talk about Tesla for 1 second. This was a cool piece of news from Rerev, and the Tesla Cybertruck is the most anticipated not only EV, but car ever in 2023. The world is waiting for it. This is the amount of searches as compared to other vehicles. 1.854 million searches for the Tesla Cybertruck. And that is, if you add up all the other searches, it doesn't add up to 40% of the amount of searches for the Cybertruck, which is stunning. Number 2 is the Mercedes-Benz EQS SUV, which probably costs $150,000 or $200,000 or something crazy like that. But the Cybertruck is number 1, and people think, oh, it's not going to sell or it's never going to be produced. It's coming. They're floating around in San Francisco and Palo Alto, LA, Austin. They're everywhere to be seen, and they're just getting as many miles on them as they can before they start ramping into scale production. And that will be an interesting time. And with that, everybody, that's the story for today. Hope everybody's doing well. I have the CEO of our favorite miner on tomorrow, CleanSpark. We'll get deep into what it takes to determine a good mining company and if they have any secret sauce. And thank you all. Hit the like on the way out, and I appreciate the mods in the chat and everybody else. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.